We're here with the Business of Wholesaling podcast. I'm your host, Drew Carroll from Leadzolo, and I'm here today with Stratton Brown, the StratDaddyy. Stratton, how are you?
Good, bro. How about you? Thank you
I'm
so much
awesome.
for having me on.
I'm so excited to have you here today. As some of the listeners won't know, we have been kind of working together behind the scenes on a little project that you're going to talk about a little later on in the podcast, which is super exciting. But before we get there, I want to ask you, who are you and what do you do?
My name's Stratton Brown. I guess you could call me an entrepreneur. I wouldn't necessarily just call myself a real estate investor. We own some storage facilities. We own a VA recruiting company. We started up this wholesaling company again 5 or so months ago to see what we could make happen. I love business. I geek out talking to Drew whenever we talk because I love how excited he is about Leadzolo and seeing his vision for where everything's going to go. I just love hearing about that stuff and seeing what people plan and how they're going to take over. So I say I'm a business nerd overall.
That's awesome. That's my kind of guy. What was your first business?
My first business was probably mounting people's TVs in college because I grew up really, really country. I grew up in like a small town with a stoplight and a gas station.
Yep.
And then when I got to Fresno State, nobody really knew how to use tools. And I had like a bag of Milwaukee tools that my dad gave me when I worked for him in high school. And so I just started mounting people's TVs for like $25. And that was like my first business of like making side money in college.
And did you do that like for an entire summer or like it was just a one-off here and there?
Like one-off here and there. I wouldn't say I was ever like a really like big entrepreneur person because I played sports all the time. I wasn't ever necessarily worried about how do I go make money. My best friend's dad and like my godfather, they're worth a lot of money, I'm not gonna lie, and they own a really big construction company. And so from the age of 13 on, if we ever needed cash, we could just go work for the construction company, slave away, make whatever money we needed. They'd work around our sports schedule and we could just go from there. And then when I got to college and I would get like a stipend check for $1,500, my rent was like $800. Then I needed to start to learn how to like make money so I could survive a little bit more because no matter how much footwork I did, more money. Yeah. Right? It was illegal to give us a bagel and fucking cream cheese. So let alone are they going to give us a couple $100 if we need it. And so that's when I learned how to like, okay, well, I need some cash. I mounted a TV and one of my teammates came over. He was like, oh, bro, can you do this for me? And then obviously I was like, yeah, I'll do it for free. And then everyone else saw his TV and then that's when I started to charge.
And how long did you do that? Was that like, you just did that a couple of times or?
Yeah, just in college.
Yeah.
And make a couple $100 a month.
That's cool. What did you go to college for?
I went to college. I played football.
You went to college for football. Very American
I went to
answer.
college for football, bro. I mean, I went to Fresno State. Out of high school, I had 4 ed scholarships in 3 different sports. So I had a 4 ed scholarship in football, I had a 4 ed scholarship in track, and I had a 4 ed scholarship in rugby. And so I was like, okay, what do I want to do? I did the scholarship I got in track. I didn't want to run. I hate running. So I was like, I'm not doing this. And then I had one in rugby. And that one, actually, it wasn't a full ride. It was a partial, and I still have to pay some. But then, like, there's no career in rugby. And if I was good enough in rugby, because I played for USA growing up, my friends who were really good, they went pro when we were, like, 17. Like, they were on, like, teams over in Europe and everything else, like the Premier League or whatever, playing while I was still in high school. They got picked up when we went over and traveled to Europe for USA. And then for football, I had a full ride to a junior college, and I had 2 like 75%. And the 75% were like, yeah, you can come, you can earn more, or I could go to a junior college, bet on myself, and then go D1 after that, and that's what I did.
Good for you. And do you still play ball?
No, bro. My body hurts. And I mean, you get too competitive, dude. And like, I don't know if you've seen the trend. I probably see it on like social media, like the 37U trend, where it's a bunch of these like 30-year-old to 40-year-old dudes playing semi-pro football, just absolutely destroying their bodies, cheap shots everywhere, you know, because it's a bunch of dudes who think they're going to get drafted. So if I go play, they're like, oh, he played D1. He tried out for the Seahawks. I'm going to get him.
Yeah.
That is a recipe to blow out my knees from people. Like so I play basketball now, I'd say, if it's like the sport I play the most.
I watch. I don't play it enough, but I have some buddies who do like a house league, a hockey house league up here. And we're all like 40 now. And like, yeah, that it's just dirty and it takes 3 days to recover. And we're just a bunch of old dudes, man. Yeah. How would you say that your sports background helped you kind of line up to become an entrepreneur?
I would say the biggest thing is I understand the inputs and outputs of life, because I got to see, I want this goal. I'm going to work really, really hard at this goal as much as I can. Because like my goal from, let's say, 9th grade on is I wanted to go D1. And I put in all the inputs I could, and then eventually I got the output I wanted, right? And then I get to Fresno State, and I wanted to start. I wanted to be all conference. I wanted to be the best DB in the country. I didn't really even play because I had 2 injuries my sophomore year and junior year, but I worked my ass off. I watched more film than anybody else. Then my senior year, I'm 17th in the country in tackles. I'm all conference. And then I get to try out for the Seahawks, right? And so like I got to see very, very clear inputs and outputs.
Right.
Over long periods of time, too. It's not just like a little bit of an input for an output. This is years of time working at something to get something that I want, and then eventually getting that reward. And so I think in entrepreneurship, and I'll go over this like the challenge, there's so many inputs that you need to have in order to get the outputs that you want. And it's not, it's like, okay, my footwork needs to be better. All right, for the next little while, we need to work on our brake going left because your left foot is awkward for some reason. And then, okay, well, I'm not catching enough picks. So what did I do? I sat on the jugs for an hour every day after practice, and I just catch balls here, here, here. And that's the input that I needed. So when the opportunity came, I was prepared and I could take advantage of it. I think that's like the number one thing that most people don't see in entrepreneurship. Like they just see Hormozy being a dog and fucking winning at everything. But Alex Hormozy goes and he learns skills really, really fast. Then he implements them, and then he sucks for a long time. And then, okay, we got it figured out. Now we move on to the next step. Right? And then we do the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And that's all businesses is acquiring and learning skills. Sports is the same thing.
I like the idea of like acquiring and practicing skills without an expectation of immediate outcome. I think a lot of young entrepreneurs miss that a lot. Like to your point, they see Hormozy go, oh, well, they say I got to make 100 cold calls a day and I'll be successful. I made 100 yesterday and I didn't close the sale. So obviously that's a crock of shit. And it's just like, no, like there is a very long time commitment involved in learning anything, and you just have to get through it. I can't remember the name of the painter now, but there's a painter whose famous quote about becoming, if you want to become an artist, like you just gotta get the first 100 paintings out of the way. It's kind of tongue in cheek, but what he's saying is like you just like you need to go do a whole bunch of this, and then you can start coming and asking me for advice. But until like you go through the grind a little bit, you have no context, you have no lattice work to hang the learnings on. Right? If you're just a blank sheet who has zero experience, zero skills, and you're being taught something completely brand new and foreign to you, how do you expect to synthesize that in your mind? So tell me about your first company that was like first LLC, first bank accounts, like first serious business you started.
I started a home inspection business. So I'm 29 now. When I was like 22, I just got back from the Seahawks. I knew I wanted to invest in real estate because I like to party. And I was like, I'm going to make all this money in the NFL. I need to learn how to invest so I can protect it. So I was going to all these real estate meetups, and I thought, like, okay, being a home inspector is a good way for me to stay in real estate and, like, make some money. I was like, if I do, like, X amount of inspections a year, I'll make $100,000. I'll be fine, blah, blah, blah. And then I did, like, a walkthrough crawl space. Like, I did, like, a crawl space and a mock inspection. And I was like, bro, I'm never fucking doing this again. Like, the crawl space is way too small. It was terrifying. I was like, bro, I could get bit by a snake. That was like my first LLC business. And then from there, I was like, I'm not doing this. I met another guy who was like the biggest investor in Fresno. I ended up working for him. I ended up running a lot of his day-to-day, all the marketing, all the sales, like leading the sales team and like handling a ton of that. And then I started my own. I told him when I worked for him I was going to start my own company. So I started a company in a different market. And I made $5,000 from like direct mail about 2 years into working for him in Utah, not in California, because I wasn't going to like just bite the hand that fed me and the dude who helped me out so much. That was my first business, was the home inspection business. Then like first time I got into wholesaling was a year after the home inspection business of me like figuring that out.
Yeah.
And then working for that guy. And then after I broke off, did my own stuff, then we started Call Magicians, and we took that one to $1 million in 18 months. And I'd say a little bit of that was like the COVID bubble, because like everybody would just give us money, and I kept raising prices and they kept giving me money. Right. And so like there was like my first at bat, because wholesaling compared to a service-based business are two completely different things, bro. Wholesaling is turn and burn.
Yeah.
odds are you're never going to have a repeat property from someone. If you do, you'll know at the front end, and so you can treat that differently. So you're not worried about the customer experience and all these other things. You're worried about getting people in, getting people out as fast as possible, because time kills all deals.
Yep.
Right? And so it's that aspect versus when we were running Call Magicians, that was a lead generation company through cold calling. Much different. You got recurring revenue. You got to like nurture clients. Anytime anybody would close a deal with us, we'd send them a $300 custom bottle of champagne, right? Cool. Just from like giftology, and it would say like Call Magicians on it. And we do all these special things. If any clients, whenever someone signed up with us, we got their birthday, favorite sports team, favorite color, favorite candy. And so they'd get presents on their anniversary from us. They'd get presents on their birthday from us. Like, we'd know all these things about them so we could increase that overall lifetime value. The recession in 2022 hit, like, where everything went down, and we don't have a ton of margin. Our COO ended up stealing 6 figures from us, and we had like 150 employees. And I was like, bro, I fucking hate this company. Yeah. And I'd say the reason I hated it is I outsourced my HR.
Interesting.
I wasn't the one making the final decision on all the hires, and so I had a bunch of people in here who weren't necessarily aligned with the culture.
Interesting.
Right? Because my culture compared to HR's culture is still different. Even though they know it's me, if I could go back, I'd do the final interview just to make sure the person, because I'm a very like intense person, where we brought in someone who was like kind of woke. Yeah. No offense to the woke people. I was like, what the fuck do you mean? Like, no, we're not doing this shit. Like, get out of here. I was like, you're fired. Yeah. And so that was a big issue, because I remember waking up one morning, like, bro, I hate this company. Yeah. And then after reflecting on it, learning about it, it's because I wasn't the one, especially in a people business, making that final decision on all the people.
Well, that's really interesting. Currently, our leadership team, we do like book reviews, like a couple chapters a week or whatever. And we're currently doing 10X is easier than 2X. Or 2X is harder than 10X. I don't know. Yeah. So who, not how. It's about finding somebody who can do what you need to do versus trying to figure out how to do it yourself. And I think a lot of people, when they're hiring, what they do is they like figure out a process, and they try and figure out, and they try and hire somebody to implement that process, right? So it's a very how-based mentality. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs can get stuck in that. Right now, we've seen our greatest leaps when we've run into a wall and not known how to do something, to figure out a process, to hire the right people to manage the process, and gone, I don't know how to do this. We're just going to hire this guy it's his specialty, or hire a coach or a consultant or whatever it might be. Brought him in, boom, instant impact. And it bursts us through every single ceiling that we've had. So it's really, that's so interesting for me to hear, because I've never heard of somebody talk about it like that. Like, I've outsourced HR, I didn't take the final interviews, and then I had this culture that didn't match mine. Like, that's so interesting to me. It speaks a lot to like more need to look for who's in right positions that are right for your company than this whole like process oriented how recruitment agency.
Because like that HR was internal for us still. Like, I had an entire HR and recruiting department, but then I didn't keep tabs on it. Was the issue. But then with the girl who ended up stealing from us, bro, we poached her off. She was managing 3,000 people at Alorica at the time. Dude. And so that's why the reason we were able to hit scale so fast, because I'd never done it before. And she's like, no, these are all the systems we need for this thing to run efficiently on the back end. And so instead of having to go bang our heads up against the wall, like, how are we going to manage people in 5 different time zones? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? How are we going to do this? We had great people who were like, no, this is how we do it. And again, didn't have to bang my head up against the wall, have to go on these long walks, meditate. How do I figure out this one? This person was already there, and that's what allowed us to scale faster and be able to handle like the influx of clients and influx of employees.
How did Phone Magicians start? I know you said it exploded kind of in COVID.
At a point in time, I had like our wholesaling business was set up. I had VAs working for me, and they would just tee up leads, and I just talked to them, and I was like, hey, here's what we're going to do. And so I just hop on the phone a couple hours a day, and the VAs would handle everything else. And at that point in time, it was like cold calling and texting. I had like 12 cold callers with the company. I'd kept cycling through a bunch of other people. And then these people, quality went down. And it's probably the same thing we were talking about earlier, to where it's like a person of a person. I was like, bro, I'm not fucking doing this. I'll take it in-house. And so I took it in-house, set up an internal team, managed everything, brought in recruiting and HR. A bunch of people kept approaching me like, hey, bro, how do you do this? How do you do this? How do you do this? And I just started off like, just, hey, yeah, I'll make a couple grand a month. And then we got it to $1 million pretty fast. Wow. And so that's the reason it started, just because like I saw a need that no one else was like filling it on my end. Because even now, no matter what anybody says, I know how the back end of that industry works. No one is actually running an operation. It's all third parties. Right. Like all the influencers you see who say like they own a call center, it is all a third party. They are not running it. It's someone else is there. The influencer is the marketing arm.
Yep.
So that way they don't have any cost on marketing. And then that's how they grow. But that influencer has nothing to do with any of the operations.
That's interesting. PPL industry seems to work that way as well. And maybe we could do a whole episode on that one day. Very interesting. Very interesting. So you did that. Your wholesaling company was going well. The Phone Magicians kind of just grew on its own. And then obviously you invested a lot of energy into that, scale it. So where are you now? So you did that. And then when did you reach out to me about doing a challenge?
So we did that. And then I started another company. That was the employee retention credit stuff. You're an internet marketer, so I'm sure you saw that. We took that thing really big, really fast. And then we never got paid. And so that one sucked. Because, I mean, we got that one to $1 million net within a year. And then essentially we're waiting on millions of dollars from the government now.
Yeah.
And so that one was a different iteration of like, okay, here's what I learned from Call Magicians. How can we do this better? So they're okay, I'll handle the final interviews. We'll still do it all VAs. Dictate our sales process a lot more because like we had 2 different sales trainings a day going in Call Magicians. So I knew how to run and recruit and manage sales teams. We did everything through cold calling. So we'd have like 20 callers at a time. We went and I bought every single business record in the state of California and across any liberal state in America. And we got a dialer and we hired on a sales trainer for the cold callers. We hired on a sales trainer for the sales reps. And then we scaled that up. And essentially started spending as much money as possible. We even went out and raised money for that because like we saw the opportunity.
Yeah.
And then from there, it was like winding down. We were getting paid, but then like everyone's like, hey, bro, this is going to take a while. I was like, okay, what should we do now? And so that's when I hit you up. I was like, hey, Drew, here's what I want to do. I've done these 2 things. I feel like I've gotten some good opportunities and like good at-bats of like knowing how to scale things. So let's see if we can do the 0 to $1 million challenge. And this has been significantly harder than anything I have ever done. And I'd say for several reasons. The first one, you're like, Strat, what markets do you want to be in? I was like, bro, send me a lead anywhere. I'll just fucking close it.
Yep.
Stupidest thing I could have ever fucking said. Stupidest shit I could have ever said when it just comes to like lifetime value and everything else when it comes to scalability.
But I want to ask you a question there really, really quickly. So you've mentioned lifetime value a couple of times. You mentioned earlier wholesaling being a transactional business versus like an agency, which is a relational business.
Yeah.
Now, I'm passionate about a relational business because I can increase LTV, lifetime value. And the importance for me for increasing lifetime value is that I'm smart enough to know that just like our grocery prices, ad prices are never coming down, right? It'll only ever go up. By how much each year, who knows, but it will literally only ever go up. So I know that every single moment of every single day, I need to treat customers better, build stronger relationships with them so they spend more money with us, so they're worth more money, so that I can spend more money to acquire them.
Yeah.
How does that work in wholesaling?
I would tell you go after bigger markets. And I hit you up and I was like, Drew, I want less leads in bigger markets. And I think this was a couple months ago because my friend Dean operates in all Central California, and Dean did 50 leads, 15 contracts, $400,000 in revenue. And I was just like, I got to hit up Drew. I was like, I'm doing it a little bit wrong because like I was like, okay, if we can pencil out 15K a day, it'll take us a while to get to 15K a day. It's going to take 90 days for anything to even like build up into anything. And like all these things that I was thinking to where the one thing I got wrong is I should have been like, okay, I only want a market of $300,000 and above if we were ever going to get there. Because then the hard part when you're dealing with these smaller markets, unless you're really well versed in it, when you're thinking about like a lead and what's a qualified lead in the 4 pillars, price, timeline, motivation, and property condition. The issue is when you're dealing with shit boxes in lower markets, the property condition can be a deal killer because people can't give you these houses. Right, and so that's what'll be another deal killer for you. We had one come in the other day in Shreveport, Louisiana. This old woman hits us up. She's like, hey, I'd like to sell it. I can do like 20 grand. And she was like, I was in there 3 weeks ago. It was in great condition, blah, 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 this and that. It's worth probably 120. We get in there. Someone broke in, trashed the house.
No.
I was like, ma'am, you couldn't give us this house. No one's going to want to buy this. And so that way, you have no margin to renegotiate with those leads, which is hard.
Right.
And so that's why I'd say if you are doing it, like in East St. Louis, and we crossed out East St. Louis because we were getting our absolute balls kicked in over there. because like I was like locking stuff up, and then we just couldn't figure out what the buyer avatar was.
Yeah.
Then we finally figured out the buyer avatar. The house just has to be livable. But in East St. Louis, there's a bunch of houses that are not livable, that are vacant, coming from California. I'm like, bro, if it's a vacant house, we can make money. Like, flat out, if it's in Fresno, California, it's vacant, and it's been vacant for 20 years, it doesn't matter. ARVs, let's call it 300 and above.
Yeah.
We can make money. In East St. Louis, the landlord's like, no, it needs to be rentable, and then we can make money, because there's so many other houses like this. You're not the demand. I'm the demand. So the buyers are the demand. And so you got to figure out that way. Right? And so there's all these different like moving parts that go around in every market. And I think that's the other part. When you're doing nationwide, you have no confidence. Like, you have no idea if this is a deal or if this is not a deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's so many variables. Like, I didn't even consider that. Like, there's so many areas right now in the United States where, you're not going to find a buyer, regardless of how good of a deal you got it. Yeah.
Even with the novation. We've even like stuffed up, like we'd started sticking stuff up on the market, and still we'd get crickets. We have one right now that, where is it? Somewhere in Missouri, in a smaller metro.
Yeah.
Absolute crickets.
Really? Interesting.
Absolute crickets. It's been on the market for like a month and a half. And like, we were like, yeah, this will work. And we told them, like, here's what we're going to have to do, bro. Like, you're in a semi-small market.
Do you think the rate decrease will help with that? It'll add more buyers, at least, into the market? Retail buyers, I should say.
I don't think so.
No?
I think there's only so much demand for the areas.
Interesting.
And I think you just have to come to terms with like the fact that these things have to sit for 6 months to move. Just because no one's looking to move there. I mean, we get a house in South Dakota, bro. I don't know what their population increase is every year, but not very many people are looking to move to South Dakota.
Yeah, you're not going from California to South Dakota. Yeah. So what's the sweet spot then? What have you learned?
I would say you'd want to be at 150 bare minimum and above. So that way you have room on the bottom. And I never thought about having room on the bottom. But if I look at our properties under contract right now, we have a package of 3 in Duncan, Oklahoma for 15, 20, and 40.
Yeah.
The biggest issue with that one at 15, if it is not good, it's just not good.
Right. You can't go any lower.
You can't go any lower. There is no like, hey, we need to renegotiate. It's either like it works at 15 or it doesn't.
Yeah.
To our one, we had one at 210. We're probably going to get it like 165.
Yeah.
Because we got in there like, hey, this isn't what it looks like. So that gives us essentially a whole house to negotiate with.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest thing when you want to talk about lifetime value, because you can build. The reason I really didn't want to do cold calling anymore either, and when I tell people when you're building it, if you want to do that, think about all the moving parts that your business needs to have now when you're cold calling. Now you need to have, if you want to take it in-house, you have a manager. You have a leads manager who needs to work those leads for at least 6 months before they even turn into money.
Yeah.
With PPL, PPC, Facebook, whatever you want, those leads, if you get them on the phone, you should be able to convert them decently fast, or at least get an offer out. And then that person can manage those leads.
Yep.
With cold calling, bro, you're going to get a bunch of leads in, so now you need to have just another person on staff to work the leads and nurture them for a long amount of time. And so as you're building something, like, what do I want it to look like? Who do I want to manage? What's this going to be? How fast do I want to get paid? Because, yeah, cold calling works and it's awesome. But that's a lot of effort on the back end from like a management standpoint. And then you're going to have turnover and you're going to have all these other things. So with PPL, bro, the leads come in and you're like, hey, the lead quality isn't that good. I can just go test out another provider. But then there's no other things that you need to do, no other decisions that need to be made, no other skills that need to be learned would be the next thing.
It's applying who, not how to that arm of your business. It's just, I've got to figure out all this other stuff, sales and dispo and all this kind of stuff. I also don't want to have to learn how to market. So I'll find a who for that. For you was coming to me, and then you're still trying to figure out this piece. Good thing you didn't try and do it all on your own. My God.
Right, because then it's a lot. Because then you have, okay, we've only ever done anything with VAs. But then for this, I was like, I don't think we can do it with VAs. We've had, because I need someone who can close now. Yeah, we've trained up people and done it like that. But if I put that 6 month window on me. And so I was like, okay, I need to go hire someone who's done this before. And so then the next thing goes like, okay, well, how do we recruit and hire great Americans? I've never had to do that before. So there we have another learning curve. We hired on like, I want to say 15 different sales reps. We've only gotten one to stick.
Right.
Right? To where now you have that turnover. And then as you're doing that and you're hiring and training those sales reps, you have no time to get to all the leads that you have. And another dumb thing that Stratton did, Drew was like, bro, I'll give you 20 leads a day. I was like, cool. Worst decision of my life. Because you don't have enough time to work the leads. If you get these guys on the phone, you're on the phone for an hour if it's a quality lead. Yep. Right? Between getting it locked up and all this other stuff. If you with 20 leads a day, another lead's coming in at least 30 minutes into that call.
Yep.
And so now you can't treat that lead with the great quality that it needs to be treated because that person needs to be touched within 5 minutes. Because if they aren't touched, and I was doing research with like our numbers, we have a ton of people we can't get a hold of with the leads we've been doing. If I look at the data, these are all the leads that we came in at 3 a.m. that no one touched. Right? It's like those stuff. Where in all reality now, we have to hire on someone to just be on the phones overnight if we continue this. You know, and so it's like learning all those things because I would say more than likely, Leadzolo's lead, and I know this is like a Leadzolo podcast, but I love them. Their lead quality is there. So now you have to look at it through the lens. Okay, if it's a bad number and it's a bad lead, you can get a refund or you can get a credit to it, whatever it is. Right? You can get a credit to it. But then all those other ones that come in that you don't get a hold of, you just never even know. And then odds are it's because you didn't get them on the phone within 5 minutes. Because if you can get them on the phone within 5 minutes, you have a dialed-in sales process, you'll close them. Right? And so it's like clogging all of these little holes in your business and knowing what needs to be fixed, what doesn't need to be fixed, and all that other stuff. And then Drew's like, hey, bro, I can give you these leads, but we have terms. We're not here to lose money, Strat. Like, here's some excess that we have. We can do it overnight, and it is. And so, okay, if we're going to adapt it this way, how do we build it so it actually works out? And so that's the next hire. We have our sales rep, and hopefully we can keep doing this with Drew. And then now we'll just have to have a VA overnight. If anybody comes in, you just pay them to be on staff and sit on the phones overnight. Yeah. If you want to truly maximize the lead quality, in my opinion, when you're getting that many leads.
Yeah, and I think it's not even the volume of leads necessarily the issue. I think a lot of wholesalers run into this where it's like they're almost looking for something to blame. And so, you know, oh, the lead quality suck. It's like, it's not like, it doesn't matter if you get leads from me or another lead provider or whatever it is. Exactly your point. If you don't have your systems dialed in, you don't even know if it's a quality lead because you're not following up on it. People are thinking a quality lead is they answered their phone and they were trying to give me their house that, you know, that's worth $500,000 for $100,000. Like, I'm sorry, that's not how it works. Like, work needs to be, you need to put in some work there. So yeah, that's a really interesting point. So where are you now with the challenge?
I would say the biggest thing that I messed up on is not being aggressive enough because we've had to I bet you've canceled like 30 contracts. Like at least 30 contracts. And like, I'll go into here and I'll even tell you, okay, why did we cancel all these?
Yeah. Find some fun ones.
So we have 3 in Detroit. We couldn't get them cheap enough in Detroit because there's so many houses for sale. Unless someone's getting just a home run, they don't want it. So like, bro, we had one. So this one right here, and this was interesting. It's on. We got it for 50. A house right next to it sold for 180. It was in decent shape. Yeah. All buyers told us it needed to be at 30. It's a 1,500 square foot house. It didn't need that much work. But then they're just like, well, I can go to another house down the street, only have to spend $5,000 more, and I still have it. And so knowing what type of market you're in, right? Because that's in Detroit. And then we have one in Chicago to where I had no idea that we had to get a water reading. And I told Drew, they're like, hey, Drew, I'm going to be sending you a wire for like $23,000. And this was like a month ago. Yeah. This wire never came because the city wouldn't do the water reading and the owner lost it to tax sale. No. We were waiting on the water reading, couldn't get the water reading done. The city kept delaying it. We got 3 different water meetings done. They're like, oh, this isn't good enough, this isn't good enough, this isn't good enough. And so now we lose $23,000 assignment. That was supposed to close. This is like within the first couple of months this one came in.
So you're saying anybody listening who has gotten in with the city of Chicago to do any of this water, whatever it is, they could be cleaning up right now?
And then at the same time, it's knowing your market. And so when do you schedule that? You schedule that as soon as you get that under contract because you're going to have hiccups.
Right.
right? Because now the city of Chicago says I need at least 21 days after that water reading to even give you a certificate. And so it's issues like that to like, hey, we're at the finish line. We're ready to go. And then it's stop, wait. Well, what's the city saying? Psych. And so you run into those issues. What's another crazy one? I'd say the biggest thing to where in California you have room for a seller to be a liar. When you're dealing at stuff underneath $100,000, you don't have room for a seller to be a liar. You have to assume everybody's lying. The property is absolutely demolished. Because a lot of these, like we get them locked up, we go look at them, it's like, bro, you said this thing was in decent shape. This is not in decent shape.
Right, yeah.
Like, we're going to need to re-talk about this. What's another good one? We had an ovation in Humble, Texas. All the comps were there, and legitimately, just no one wanted it. Just no one wanted it. We had it priced like $30,000 underneath everything else. We had it up for like 2 months. Nobody wanted it. A dude tried to sell us a house he hadn't inherited yet and ghosted us. And then he comes back saying he wants more money. That one's wild. Illinois, I would say, is not hard to do deals in. Like how everybody thinks.
Why is that?
You just got to use a good transaction coordination company. Like, shout out Easy REI Closings. David Old's team knows how to handle everything. I would say it's just relying on someone who's done it before. They know what title company to use, and then you can just get it pushed forward. We get some South Carolina stuff from you, but now I'm learning the installment method so we can get around that. Because as far as I know, like South Carolina is pretty tough.
And what's that, the installment method?
Essentially, you buy it sub 2, and they just give you 60 days. So it's like a sub 2 novation.
Okay.
Right. So you're like, hey, because you have to be on title if you're gonna market it.
Yeah.
And so you give them $1,000 to be on title, and you're like, give me 60 days, and then you can go sell it. And so that's something like where you got to get that talk track down to where you make it sound good, and everything else. And then we had one on Friday. A woman was like ready to go. She was like, yeah, I have all my stuff moved out. And this was on Wednesday. And this is because I told you, like, hey, bro, I'll send you this $200 I'm off with this other wire. I'm sorry. I was like, if you want me to sell it, I can. She tells us she's moved out completely and all of her kids are out of the house. And this is on Wednesday. The buyer goes to walk it on Thursday, and the buyer says, hey, nothing is gone. There's toddlers running around the house. She's high as hell. There's joint butts on an ashtray with like some crystal that I don't know what it is. But we told you we're not taking this thing occupied.
Yep.
Or with any of her stuff. And this is in Bangor, Maine. So this is like your only guy. Like this is the guy who's going to buy this. We did all this work to get it to the finish line. We had to go back renegotiate with her because he was the only one who would buy it. And then the seller's just now unreasonable. Like, well, no, I'm not removing any of my stuff and I'm not leaving. I want to get paid first. Like, ma'am, we told you this months ago. Yeah. This isn't the way this works. And so with real estate, you need to give yourself room to mess up, and especially in a tertiary market. And you're going to mess up in multiple ways. There's going to be title issues, right? We've had that stuff. What's another one? One of the houses, this is the first one I told you about. I was like, Drew, I got a house for $33,000 that I think's worth $250. I remember telling you about this. Nobody wanted this piece of shit. Nobody. This is in Clarksburg, West Virginia. We get a phone call on our novation saying this person is scamming people, selling them monkeys. Legitimately, she was like, "Do you own this house? Because someone tried to sell me a monkey and took $1,000 from me who lives at this house." What?
Wait, so you transferred somebody $1,000 assuming they were going to give you a monkey? That was
that's what that woman did. I was like,
all
man,
right.
I am not involved in that. That sounds like you got duped.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And this is like 5 minutes outside of town. And I was like, bro, all the square footage adds up. It's on good acreage, blah, blah, blah. And then nobody wanted it at 50. We drop it down to 40. Still nobody wanted it. And so it was that. And then I'd say learning, because when I was wholesaling a lot, we were only doing wholesaling.
Yeah.
Now you have to be able to do an attorney in fact and an innovation if you want to like continually make money. Yep. And so for the first 3 months, we were just trying to go for cash offers. And that's good and all if it's a lead that like is waiting. But with these leads, if it's a good lead, they're probably going to sell within the first 30 days, like of contacting you. So you've kind of burnt that opportunity if you didn't keep both of them right there. That would be another thing that we've learned. No one ever should be able to get off the phone with you. ever. No one ever leaves the phone.
So I'll probably just real quick, because this goes back to what you said before with like having so many leads and not enough time to call them. So we do live lead. I think you and I are going to do live leads soon, aren't we?
I'm down. Let's do it.
We jump on for a couple hours. I bring in some leads off the software for you guys to call. I did this with Tyson a couple days ago, Tyson Smith, and literally 7 leads took over 3 hours of talk time.
100%. Bro.
He got a contract, which is phenomenal, but it's to the point. Like it was, if he wasn't like filming and we weren't doing live leads or whatever, like 7 leads would have been Tyson's day. His entire day would have just been working those leads. And so, yeah, like you need to have time, and these things take time because these people are in financial troubles, which typically means they have other troubles as well. And so they need to vent. They need to work through their situation out loud with the third party sometimes. Like I talked to Elijah, friend of mine who does this all the time, and he says his biggest job while trying to acquire homes is to like just be present and just listen to people, because it's the money's one thing, but most what they need is some sort of emotional release or some sort of cathartic release before they move to a contract or something like that. So that's
exactly. And you can't, I don't care what RJ Bates says, you cannot just send someone a fucking contract and they sign it. It does not work that way. They should never get off the phone. You do not get off that phone until that paperwork is signed. You are not RJ Bates.
Yeah.
You need to walk them through that entire process, go over the paperwork with them, get it signed right there. Because if you don't, they're just not going to sign. Yeah. Like, it's a big, big step for these people. And then, to be honest, guys, we're not dealing with, like, the best people at times. You're dealing with some wild humans. And so you need to be able to, I would say, get used to that amount of energy coming into your life every day. Because, like, you can't take on all of their energy because you're just going to, like, feel terrible. Because these people are in terrible situations. I'd say 30% of them are on drugs, right? Like, you're going to have all sorts of stuff. You got to be able to, like, okay, this is just me. And I'd say from, like, a Steve Trang standpoint, Steve is really cut and dry. With most of these sellers, you can't just be, like, super cut and dry. You do have to have a good amount of tie downs, but you have to just talk to them for a while to build the trust, because, again, this is the biggest transaction they're ever going to make. If it's an older person, this is their nest egg, so they want to make sure they're making the right decision. They want to make sure they're getting taken care of. Like, you have all these things to where, from a sales aspect, if it's like a solid landlord, a 20-minute sales call is fine. Most of these people coming in, like, it's not just like a regular landlord. Like, bro, this is what I want. Here's my pains. I know what you do. I'm cool. I just need to be here. Yeah. Like, awesome. And then you can negotiate from there and then get it locked up. Most of these people, it's not like that. They're like, this is the biggest financial decision of their life. And so it takes a little bit more nurturing on that call. And I'd say having the right tie downs to, like, okay, if I can get you this number, what happens next? Because if you don't even ask that, then you're going to give them the number, and then they're just going to fall off the face of the earth.
Yep.
And so it's all these really, really good things that you learn over time and everything else.
The nuances, right? It's like mastery takes 10,000 hours or whatever it is. And like, you really start to learn this when you watch guys like yourself doing sales calls, like Tyson again the other day. It's as simple as the fact that he's done it so many times, and he was walking the girl through the contract, and he was literally playing on his computer on another screen while walking her through the contract, because he's done it so many times. And she even got to a point at the end where she goes, wait, it's asking me to sign, but the line's like kind of on a different page and it looks really weird. And you could tell that was the first time the lady was just like, whoa. Something's not right here. And like, not even missing a beat with Tyson, was just like, oh yeah, ma'am, if you want to look up on the left-hand side, it probably has you on a mobile view. You want to switch that over to a desktop view and then back to mobile. It'll reset the pages. It'll put the line in the perfect place. It's like, he's just like, he had been there so many times. Me listening to the call, I was just like, oh shit, it's over, right? She's done. She's bouncing. And he was just like, bop, de bop, de bop. Like, no, I've been here so many times. I know exactly what she's seen. I know exactly how to solve it. Exactly. So I think that getting that iteration in, and then to the building relationships, like with Elijah, he was telling me this story of this one girl they're about to do a deal with. Turns out she got put in jail that night for drugs, and she needed bail money. And so he like worked it, because they were like contract signed, like ready to go. And so she's calling him from jail going like, listen, I get that you're going to give me X amount of money for the house and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I can get $5,000 of that today so I can post my own bail. And so like he went through the whole process with her, and he did it. and he got her. He advanced her $5,000 on the property. Anyways, everything went well. It went perfectly. They ended up acquiring the home, they flipped it or did something with it. And then she literally called him 2 weeks later because she had a friend in jail who needed bail, and she was also looking to sell her house. And so he then talked to this girl from jail, talking about her house, and I don't know if he ended up like giving her money that day or what it was, but like, it was just like, man, he's just so good at creating relationships that they're like, and he can navigate through these like such obscure situations. Like, I wouldn't have even taken that phone call. You know what I mean? Yeah. But he's just been there, and he gets it, and he gets people, and like, he knows what he can do and what he can't do, and he's just comfortable. And I think that just takes iteration. Do your first 100 paintings, like we were saying before. Exactly. Go make your calls and get kicked in the head. And like the nuances start to come, and you start to build this lattice work to hang these lessons on over time.
I'm trying to think of other lessons I've learned. Investor Lift is just a tool.
Oh my gosh. Talk to me about Investor Lift. Yes.
So Investor Lift is just a tool. I love Rob. They sponsored the challenge. But you need to learn how to work with buyers, because I grew up and I'm a very like man of my word type person. Like when we first talked, I was like, bro, here's where we're at. Here's what I'll do. Here's my phone number. Here's access to everything. If you need anything, let me know. And like that was that. I shook on it through a Zoom call, and we were good to go.
Yep.
With some of these, like with Investor Lift, you need to learn how to use Investor Lift the right way, because number one, you're going to get a bunch of daisy chainers when you're in a major metro. Mm-hmm. Right. So if you're in a major metro, you need to be able to like set it up the right way. We don't even give addresses anymore. Like we'll send it out, and then we'll call, we'll verify like, hey, if you want the address, we need proof of funds. Who are you? This and that, blah, blah, blah. Because it's too easy for people to snake you. Because we had a deal in Tampa. We have a guy who's working for a company who we all know of, and he's like, yeah, I do want this. Our dispo rep was like, hey, I know what your company does. Do you want this or not? Because I'm not fucking wasting my time with your company. Mm-hmm. You guys are daisy chainers. He was like, no, I actually want this. I was like, okay, like you're really the only guy interested. Like we have one other guy. We'll give you access. Here's the lockbox code. He goes there, walks it, says he doesn't want it. And then the seller calls us 5 minutes later saying, who the fuck is at my house? This is not the guy who said to be at my house. He gave the lockbox code to someone else. The guy went to go in his house. This was owner occupied.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, what the hell's going on here? Blah, blah, blah. And so you need to learn how to navigate the situations with buyers and then I called the guy. I'm like, bro, you just blew up our deal. He goes, fuck you. I was like, this is wild.
Yeah.
Like, and so you're dealing with like those types of situations to with Investor Lift. I think Artemis mode is awesome. And like sending it out, I don't think the emails have gotten really, really hard over the last 5 years. If you're like a marketer, you know how hard it's gotten. And so like the text messages are number one. But then you need to get all these people on the phone. But you're not just going to send out a text message and it's going to sell itself.
Right.
Like the days of that being that way, unless you are in a really good metro market and you have a hot deal, odds are you need to hop on the phone. And then you should still verify the person anyways, because you never know what's going on the other side.
It's not novel anymore, right? Like, and I'm not talking about like Investor Lift specifically, but like these buyers now are marketed to at mass. So they get to sit from their position and go, you're auditioning to me. Where it used to be the other way, right? It used to be these buyers were desperate for properties and wholesalers were kind of filling this need for them. And it's almost like it's been switched the other way. So how do you use Investor Lift to juice it a little bit better rather than just kind of blasting everything out?
First and foremost, if we get something now, we get an attorney. If we can, we're going to get an attorney in fact signed, and we're going to put it on the MLS. But for some properties, like the MLS just doesn't work. And it was in Martinville, Virginia, and all of our attorney in fact people, like our flat fee brokers, they said we could either get you 3 hours north on that MLS or an hour east on that MLS. I want to be in our MLS. Like, I want to be in this place's MLS. Like, what do you mean? He was like, sorry, we don't have the relationships. We use 3 different flat fee brokers to do these for us. None of them had it. So we had to send it out on Investor Lift. And then we used like their Artemis mode. We saw every other property that's been for sale in the area. We called every single buyer who looked at every single property in that area, and that's how we found our buyer. Right? But it wasn't, the initial text message isn't what worked. The initial text message went out. The guy we ended up selling it to, he didn't even see our property.
Yeah.
He didn't even go through the text. And so going through all of those other buyers and getting them on the phone, talking to them like blah, 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 this and that, that's how we finally got it done.
Yeah.
And so it's using it to its full capacity of like at least having a buyer's list. Facebook groups still work really well. Facebook groups are still good, but then it's iffy if you're going to put it out on Facebook. You know, it still kind of freaks me out to just put our property info out there like that.
Same thing you were talking about before with the property info and people kind of try and come underneath you.
Yeah, bro. It's a very, very cutthroat world, and if it's a good deal, they may just try and just jack you up all the way just because they can. Because humans will always operate in their own self-interest. If they don't know you from Adam, there is absolutely zero downside for them doing that. There's zero downside. In like our Fresno, California community, we're a very, very tight-knit investor group. So if someone does that, like their name gets burnt and they can't do business with anybody else. And it's happened a couple times. But like we all kind of hold each other accountable. Bro, if you're in Dallas, Texas, nobody knows everybody. You know, like that. If he wants to do that, he can do that. And so it's learning that aspect. But I think Artemis mode on it's good. The text messages are good. But whenever we've sold something through Investor Lift, I would say our text messages go out and some buyers may be interested. But odds are they're like, oh, no, I want it here. I want it here. I want it here. When you're dealing with buyers, they're always going to want it at a better price. Don't even, you know, like they're always going to say, oh, no, I want it at a better price. I need it here. And so then you use Artemis mode to call everybody else in the area, and then you go from there. And so that's learning how to use it. I wouldn't say the right way, but using all of the capabilities that are there is what really matters.
Well, I think you said it perfectly. It's a tool, right? Just exactly like Leadzolo leads are a tool, right? Like don't buy a Leadzolo lead and think that it's a contract, right? And that you just made 20 grand.
Exactly.
These are door opener conversations, essentially, more than anything else. And Investor Lift is the exact same thing. It's a door opener conversation to buyers. It's not having the conversation for you. It's not making you stand out. It's not, demanding a higher price because it's on Investor Lift. Like, no, it's a tool where you can maybe use to build relationships, can maybe use to squeeze out a higher assignment fee, can maybe use for other things. But to your point, like they don't do it. Like that's not what they do. And I think a lot of people are under the impression that I just need to get a Leadzolo lead and post that lead on Investor Lift and make 20 grand. And if that were the case, there'd be a lot more billionaires out there.
And I would say 10 years ago, that would have worked. But now in wholesaling, there's gotten so many people in there. You have to be operationally excellent if you want to like really thrive. Like you actually do have to run a business well if you want to make money. Because there's so many dipshits on the internet teaching people how to do this, right? Like we all put out YouTube videos on how to do it, but then there's someone who spends $2,000 to go get a bunch of leads and they're going to try and go do it, but then they don't know like, oh, wow, Stratton does this all day, every day. And so he can go get it under contract, do all this. And by the time I've talked to the person and gone to go give them an offer, we've already sent over someone to get photos. Yeah. Right. And so like having an operationally excellent business really does matter when it comes to wholesaling. And if you want to grow a little bit, because it's so competitive. Like if you're in any major metro, it's going to be competitive. And so you got to poke all those little holes in your bucket and fill them up. Yeah. Because that's what's really going to help you get to the finish line. Not just like, hey, we use Leadzolo. That's going to be the end all be all. It's going to save our business. Yeah. Like, yeah, Leadzolo's awesome. And they're going to send you great leads. But now we got to get them on the phone in a timely manner. We can't let them get off the phone. As soon as like we finish up, like, hey, so here's your next step that's going to happen here. Here's what's going to happen here, and explaining that whole process to them. And then being operational excellent on the buyer side and getting it to the finish line.
Yeah, I think operational excellence is definitely something more people should aspire to. The problem is, as Mark Twain says, one of the biggest issues with the human condition is that we all want to be builders and none of us want to be maintainers, which means to me that all of the money is in the people who are willing to maintain. And in my mind, maintenance means like just focusing on one thing and not jumping from one trend to the next or one fancy shiny object to the next. And we're day trading crypto tomorrow or whatever it is, like wholesaling is getting more competitive 100%. But to me, that just means there's just a lot more noise of crappy, shitty executors. And I know there's not an industry in the world that I couldn't come in and dominate, not because I have some super intelligence. I most certainly do not, but I have a high pain tolerance and I'm quite capable of grinding anything out. And that has always helped me win in every situation. So I like that a lot. What other learning lessons do you have? And then I want to shift from that to be like, if you're going to create the perfect blueprint for a brand new investor today, it's got a little bit of money, like they can get Investor Lift, they can get some leads from Leadzolo, not 20 a day like you or something. And I'd love for you to just kind of talk through what that blueprint would look like, in your opinion, based off of what you've learned in the last few months.
You don't need a ton of leads would be number one. I'd tell you to pick a decent sized market of $200,000 and above. If it's your backyard, I'd say stick in your backyard, because you know that random cross street to where if you go past that cross street, you're like, this is a hellhole. This is good.
Yeah.
And there's streets like that everywhere. Like if you're on the East Coast, like Philadelphia is wild like that. Like there's like towns like that are just crazy.
You can also like walk into your local RIA, like meetup, and like you will find your cash buyer. Like you don't
and it's
need
a lot easier.
Yeah.
And the relationships there, and you don't have to feel, because like in our, let's just say in Fresno, California, I know if I send it to like one of my friends, they'll just be like, yes, no.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, I'll take it at this. Like, you good at that? Yeah, I'm good at that. All right, sweet. Let's go. You know, and it's a lot simpler, and it's a lot more relationship based, to where if you are nationwide, you're dealing with a lot of buyers. Yeah. That's a lot more legwork on that back end. Yeah, you feel like you may be working a little bit harder on the front end, but it's hard to sell houses that nobody wants.
Yeah.
Would be one thing. So picking a good market with $200,000 and above, at least 20,000 people.
You're talking 200K ARV average or above?
Yeah, like at least 200,000 ARV and above, because that'll give you some room. Typically, you're not buying houses at 30 cents on the dollar. Like, I don't know anybody who's really buying houses at 30 cents on the dollar. You're going to get it lowest 40 to 50, unless it's absolutely destroyed in like fire. So that gives you room to mess up on the offer, or if they lied and they're going to go back and renegotiate for a price that actually does work. Yeah. To where if you're at that, it's worth $100,000, you buy it 30 grand, bro, or it's worth like 80. Like, you got, those ones are tough, and you gotta, for me, those are turn and burn. Hey, do this, do that. What's the next? I probably spend $1,000 to $4,000 on photos sometimes. Wow. Like a month. You know, like, because if we're gonna get this many contracts, we got to go get photos, and that was one thing I did not see coming. So that would be like my biggest lesson, because I was like, okay, between flat fees if we're doing novations and then getting photos, if we're using Home Jab, that's up to $500. Our flat fee's $200, right? And so that's on one property. And then if we send it out on an investor lift too, that we're going to spend $100 on text message credits. So I'm close to like $1,000 out just for a property to try and get it sold. And so that made me a lot more hesitant to lock stuff up unless I thought I was like very confident in it. Right? Because then when we're going to shell out $1,000 to $4,000 a month, whatever it is, that adds up over time, and then you aren't recouping that. If you have like, because if you're going nationwide, you're going to be like a 50 to 60% close rate, if that. Yeah. Use a transaction coordinator was one. I think David Old's
I was just going to ask, that was literally my one question. So you would, brand new investor, don't fuck around.
100%.
Get a TC.
Get a TC. David Old's company will get paid out of escrow. It'll be the best decision you've ever made, because we've had stuff where there's been lien issues we didn't know how to solve. They helped us out. They picked the title company for you. They know how to handle all that. If you're brand new, you don't even know how to open escrow, bro. So like if you're like, okay, I'm new, I would get PPL leads coming in. I would tell you, if you are brand new, get the nationwide leads and get the marbles out of your mouth and get used to talking to sellers, because it's going to matter when the stuff comes up and it's like hot. You don't want to fumble that bag.
So you're saying
going to pay tuition.
Drop $500 on tuition and just like get cheapest leads, get the nationwide, and just get, I love that. Just talk to a bunch of sellers.
Take them through the entire script. Take them through the entire, zero expectation. Take them through that entire script. Give them just a dog shit lowball offer. Get used to handling the objections. Get used to handling the DocuSign and everything. Yeah. And then when it comes in and like, okay, wow, this house is worth $400,000. We're at that like 175 range. I think we can make some good money here. Yeah. Now you're prepared and you aren't trembling at your keyboard.
Do your free throws. Like do your free throws. Or what'd you call it? You were sitting on the what, doing your catches?
Jugs machine. So it's a machine that just throws me a ball. Yeah. And I have to catch it every day, all day. So do those and get used to it. I'd say watch Steve Trang, watch RJ Bates, watch Eric Klein. I don't know who the dude who you just did a live with. Watch me. Yeah. See who you resonate with. I tell you before, because everybody's they're all selling you something right now. I'm not selling you anything, but I will eventually, probably. Yep. But so RJ's gonna tell you, do it this way. I'm gonna tell you right now, odds are you don't have the charisma of RJ Bates to be able to close a deal that way. Steve Trank's going to tell you this way. I'm going to tell you probably have more charisma than Steve-O. And so you're going to find all these sales processes, pick one that you resonate with, stick with it, and then just hammer through it, because I'd say it's going to be so monotonous once you get into it of bam, bam, bam. We're on the phone all day, every day, getting used to putting them through that. Easy REI is a no-brainer. You want someone by your side just to tell you if you're being unreasonable. Like, because sometimes we've had issues with transaction with title companies, and I've wanted to be like, no, go fuck yourself. And like, Stratton, it's okay, calm down, this is normal. You know, like, actually with this company, this is what they want to see, right? So having just a voice of reason there. Get drip campaigns. So this one was huge for us. We use Omni Drip. Every lead that comes in, they get called 9 times within the first day. Wow. And then I think they get 4 text messages and 3 emails all within that span of time.
And does it help you manage the integrity of your phone numbers? I don't know enough about the tech space anymore on that side. I just I know for us, we have to stay on top of it.
If I was, Reese simply doesn't let you have like 3 different A2P sections, but I like what Josh and Tiff do, to where they have one for drips, one for marketing, one for their sales team, and I think they have like 3 or 4
Interesting.
different. But they're a lot more elaborate, and they're like pretty high scale. So like when you get there, I'd tell you like, okay, I have my A2P just for our drip campaigns. I have my A2P just for my follow-ups, because when we're putting out, we were having issues with spam at the beginning, because everybody get triple dialed no matter what. Everybody gets triple dialed would be another thing. And sometimes we even 4-call them if we think it's like a good one. And because you don't know if your phone number is going through. Because sometimes, like on an iPhone, I just won't even get your phone call. And so you got to like really call to get through. Drip campaigns are huge. Email, we have email drip campaigns, and every week we'll probably get 2 to 3 new appointments from our email drip campaigns.
People sleep on email, and I don't understand why. Like, if you think about the demographic we're after here, it's typically a little older range. It's fucking email. We get it all the time. We'll get somebody will dispute a lead for whatever reason, and our team will just literally email the lead and just be like, "Are you looking for a cash offer still?" And they'll reply back, "Yep." And it's just like, but it's not. It's just like their numbers weren't getting through, or they'd spam numbers or whatever it was. But yeah, email, man, it's a sleeper.
Yeah, I'd say email's good. Having a legitimate drip campaign set up. I wouldn't, if you can't afford it, then just call everybody as much as you can. Yeah. Right, for the first little bit. What else do I have? No text hurts conversion, so you need to email them. I have that written down. Like if they have a bad phone number and you're going to get a decent amount of leads that'll like have a number because they're trying to get one over on you and they don't want to be on the phone.
Yeah.
Do not send them a text message offer. Like, hey, I'm sorry, man. We'd love to get you an offer, but the only way we can get you an offer is by getting on the phone with you. That's if someone says text me only. Like, we will never, ever text out an offer. And then if they don't have a text, like an actual phone number, and it's a landline, that'll work well. But if it's just an email, then you got to work your ass off to get them like somehow on an email, because that's what's hard. When we don't have text with our drip campaigns, that's when because now the drip campaigns aren't doing anything. Right. Now you only have like a couple emails going out, and we can't hound them with text messages throughout the day, and we can't hound them with phone calls. So that makes it harder to convert. So if you are doing that, make sure you do have email set up some way or another, and that'll help you convert those leads that no one else is converting.
Right, because it's all timing. Like a lot. Like, for example, if you apply Leadzolo to buy leads, and you don't actually like show up for your sales call or something, you're gonna get an email from us for like 100 days. Like, it's just gonna go. And the reason is that we know that there's investors who like maybe they got inspired because they saw this podcast or somebody working live leads of Leadzolo and they signed up. And then when they signed up, they went, wait a minute. I don't know the first thing about this. Like, maybe I should learn what to do with the lead first. We understand that people need to do that. And so then they're going to like go look up Josh Tiff or whatever it might be, go through their course. Well, I want to make sure in 3 months when they're up to this point again, like they won't remember Leadzolo. So I want to make sure that they're getting Drew Carroll, Leadzolo in their email box the day that they're ready. And I won't know what day that is. So I make sure I'm covering 100 of them. And it should be the same with wholesalers. And I think a lot of wholesalers drop this. They want the close on that first call because we romanticize RJ or Tyson or whatever and this stuff where they're doing these one call closes and 20 grand. And it's like, yeah, but those are the highlight reels, right? The real work Like, talk to somebody like you who's an operator. The real work is talking to these people. And sometimes it takes a long time. And sometimes they're going through shit. And they got to get through the shit before they can sign a contract. And sometimes they're just like completely unresponsive. And they don't have enough pain. And maybe in 2 months when the bank's knocking on their door to foreclose on them, that'll be enough pain for them to answer that fucking email. So yeah, I think we just got to stay in front of people, and we're missing so much money when we don't.
Well, last one. We reset our drip campaign after 30 days with the people who we haven't contacted.
How so?
So like our initial drip campaign, it's called like DigiStopper. After that runs out, we just put them back on it, and you'd be amazed how many people respond. Like if like they just didn't respond the first time, we just restart the same drip campaign, and then bing, okay, here's a bunch of new leads who for whatever reason didn't answer the first time, but now we got them on the phone.
Yeah. Well, it's very like a affiliate marketing common thing, right? Like create a 90-day sequence and then loop it for 900 days. And like, it's just like, we're getting into like the spam territory here, but because it works. Like at the end of the day, it's because it works.
It works. And I just want a response.
Yeah.
I just want someone to respond, and then we can try and get them on the phone. We have some people who will like text us and say, call me, and then they just never pick up. And then you just keep working with them, and it doesn't. But I mean, it's the name of the game.
I text a specific influencer every single Monday morning because he once said he was going to do business with me and then ghosted me. And that was literally my text this morning was, I just need you to tell me to fuck off. If you could just reply and say, fuck off, I will stop messaging you. But until you don't respond, I am going to, we make a joke in the company because it's like Monday leadership call. And it's like, oh, is Drew going to send the text or the email to this guy? Oh, yeah. And it's kind of just a joke. But yeah, that was this week. It was like, you just need to tell me to fuck off. I just need a response. Otherwise, this is what I'm going to do on Monday mornings, man. And all of our prospects should know that as well. Exactly. That we're just going to keep being in front of them. Like, just give us a response. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at StratDaddyy, YouTube at StratDaddyy. I probably do 4 to 5 lives a week going over one thing. Like, so today we'll be going over like the weekly KPIs. Last week we got 6 under contract.
Where do we find that? Just on YouTube?
I'm just on YouTube. I need to do better at like actually publishing it on YouTube, but like I'll go live, I'll go everything. Because like last week we got 6 under contract, and again, this will go into our speed to lead. I'd say out of the 6, majority of them were like new leads. To where if you get them on the phone, or if it's a little bit of an older lead, I got them on the phone and then they just never got off the phone.
Yeah. I love it. So we'll link your channel in the description everywhere this is. And yeah, like check it out. I'm going to check it out. I live for this stuff. This is awesome. So thanks for having you on, or thanks for being on. And we'll schedule a live lead call, and we'll make some money together on the next one.
I love it, bro. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks, brother.